Okay, this is the sliding compound miter saw. Parts you'll need to know is the fence is back here. This is the table. This yellow part is called the throat plate. We have a miter lock, and inside the miter lock, we have to lift it up to unlock. We push this button to release it. That is the miter release. That makes so we can rotate this. Push it back down to lock it into place. Now it won't turn. Blade guard. Inside here is the blade. Handle. Inside the handle is the on-off switch. This has an electric brake on it where, compared to the radial arm saw, this slows down rather quickly. On the sides, we have two sliding rails. That's what slides out. And we have a sliding rail lock. That's this little black knob back here. Locks those rails in place. On the back side of it is the motor. Release that. You can see how it slides out. We have different, the miter index is down here in the front, and just like the radial arm saw, we will always return that to the back position. We have a bevel index on the back. We can tilt it over to a bevel, but we usually don't do that with this saw. It is more of a cross-cut saw and a miter cut saw. We can cut compound miters with it if we need to. Not necessarily the best one to do this with. We always want to hold our material tight to the fence. You can get a board. We keep our material tight to the fence, tight to the table. We make sure we have a fairly straight edge up against the fence. If we have a concave edge, which is bowed this direction, we want to have that away from the fence. We want the concave side away from the fence. As we are holding this board, if we were concave towards the fence, what we'd actually do is as we'd weaken that board while we're cutting it, we'd pinch the blade, and the blade would want to kick itself out of there. So we want to have the concave side away from the fence. So you might find your board bowing out away from the fence quite a ways. We would have to try to fix that at a later time, but if we're trying to make a rough cut, which is not a final cut, we would do that at that point. But we want to try to find the straighter of the two edges and put that up against the fence. Always have your extra off to the left. Hold it down tight with your left hand. This one we're going to bring it out, down, back. So we want to cut on the way back in. Unlike the radial arm saw, we had to control the rate of feed. This one, we are cutting basically on the back side of the blade, and we can push it down or push it back into the fence fairly easy. The wider your board is, you might have to take a couple of freehand cuts up above, but typically you're just going to go out, down, back. All the way out, all the way down, all the way back, and make sure you get that cut all the way through. We don't want to leave it up above because there's a chance that you could miss part of that in the back corner. We can cut roughly a 6x6 with this saw. It's got a 12-inch blade. A 6x6 is only 5.5 inches wide by 5.5, so we can usually get a 6x6 cut with this thing if we need to. When we are cutting miters, we never want to cut with the angle towards our hand. If we have an angle like this, if you think about what's going on, if I flip my board over the other way, now the angle's going the opposite direction. Now I can make that cut going this way, and it frees up my hand. So I just need to make sure I have my angle drawn on whatever side I need of the board that I need to make sure I'm doing. This particular saw and the one next to it are almost identical. The only difference is this one slides out where the other one just comes straight down. What I do need to pay attention to is where I make the mark for my cut. If I want to make my mark right here and I want to keep this side, what side of the mark should I have my blade on? I would want to have it on this side of my mark. That way my mark distance is there between it. If I put my blade on this side, I'm actually going to shorten my board by the width of the blade. These blades are roughly about 1/8 of an inch thick. That is called the kerf, K-E-R-F, kerf of the blade. And that takes material away. So if you think about what we're doing, if you're making multiple cuts, you're going to want to measure it, cut it, measure it, cut it, measure it, cut it, not measure it all out and then cut, cut, cut. Because if you do that, if you want all 2-inch pieces, you will shorten yourself quite a little bit as you move down the board. Make sure that the table and the fence are clear of any debris. The throat plate doesn't have any debris in it. And again, do not use the cross arm method. Looks even dumber when I try to show you on this one. That's something we want to pay attention to. Talked about throat. So if we're cutting miters, again, unlock it, release it, set the angle that we want. Let's say we want 22.5 degrees. There's a popular setting. Then we make our cut just like anything else. We bring it out, down, back. So that's something that we're going to work on. Parts that you need to know again. Fence, table, throat plate. Miter lock, miter release is on the inside. Miter index. Handle, on-off switch. Blade guard, blade. 2 sliding rails and a sliding rail lock. Motor is up on top. That is the sliding compound miter saw.